timing with that, but I was very comfortable with that. With our strides, I'm a big fan of saying, do what's comfortable for you. I don't think there's one right way to do it. I think our best hitter does our leg kick, and he's good with it, and he's comfortable with it. I just fear that a kid who isn't, an elite athlete is going to have trouble consistently repeating the same stride. But that's my opinion. If a kid is looking for advice, I would stick with the pickup or a toe tap. And then off of the stride, we say that when we glide our hands over, this is when our stride and load should be happening. Okay, so what I mean by load is that we have our stride, and we are trying to get some sort of backwards momentum with our hands to load towards the baseball. I think a lot of coaches talk about rhythm hitting. Having that load with your hands allows you to get into the flow of the pitch and allows you to spring back a little bit so that you can go ahead and attack the baseball. You can do loads in all sorts of different ways. I don't really think that there's one right or wrong way to go about it. But you see kind of the Gary Sheffield thing, or I'm a personal fan of having a quiet load. So it's some sort of linear backwards movement that allows you to get in a position that at the point of release point for our pitcher to be able to recognize that pitch as quickly as possible. So I say pound this in with our guys of stride down load at release point for the pitcher. So it's always here, we're in this position at a point of release point. That is a cardinal rule for hitting. You have to be strode and loaded at release point. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Okay, so once we get kind of through our stride and load, we're talking about bat path, okay? Bat path, when you're coaching guys, you're gonna have a variety of different locations of hands and strides. But once you are in that stride load position, this is the bat path we want. We want this knob to be facing right at the pitcher. That is the first movement. So it is right here. I think the best thing that you can teach a guy is body, knob, baseball. Body, knob, baseball. And that's how you should be working off a tee. Is that the baseball's right in front of wherever your point of contact is, here, and this is the first movement. The reason why we do this is so that the bat path allows it to be, as your barrel can be in the bat path for as long as possible. Okay, if you do this, that means your bat path will stay in the contact zone for as long as possible. A big issue that we can see from time to time with our guys, and a lot that you see with younger guys, is what we call casting. So that is out and around. That is what we call a long swing, because it takes a long time to get our barrel to the contact zone. So, it's an issue that is apparent with some of our college guys, and I'm sure it's with everyone down low. So we talk about being short and aggressive. That means here, it is this movement. It's that downward trajectory, not to create leverage, or that is the best way to create leverage. I think a misconception with some hitters is that they try to create leverage by going up, or some sort of variation of moving upwards toward the baseball. That's unfortunately not how it goes. The best way to create leverage is to work down through the baseball, okay? And then lastly, our point of contact. Our point of contact, and this is gonna be general for guys. This is, I think some of the things we talked about earlier, there's a direct method. Point of contact can vary from guy to guy. We have some guys that, their bat speed varies, but generally, our point of contact for a middle pitch is going to be just in front of our front toe. So it should look right here, just out in front. And then when an inside pitch, you're going to move that point of contact a little bit out in front, so your hands stay inside the baseball with our downward trajectory in our bat path, right here. And then if we keep this bat path, we can't put a good hard swing on an outside pitch unless that pitch is a little bit deeper in the contact zone. So that's going to be back here. That outside pitch is the hardest pitch to hit I should put it this way. It's real easy to cast and kind of guide your bat to that contact zone. But at that point, we lose our direct bat path, so that way best way to do it is to allow a deeper point of contact. Okay? Like I said, point of contact's a little bit tricky because we have guys with varying bat speed. So some guy who's maybe a little bit slower has to attack a baseball a little bit further, whereas a guy with quick hands can get himself in trouble if he's a little bit too out in front that he's lunging out. So is there any questions on that? I know I kind of fired through it, but that is generally what we teach in terms of concepts of hitting. So to enforce these concepts, we have a couple drills. And so if we can grab Sil here quick. Sil's a left-handed bat. So the first drill we'll have him do to enforce seeing the baseball off the tee is, first and foremost, we put a blue dot on our baseball. The reason why the blue dot's there is so that he knows that when he is about to strike the baseball, he is centered in not only on the baseball, but the inside part of the baseball. So I think we hear inside part of the baseball and we don't necessarily conceptualize what that means. It's that when he's at the plate, he is looking to strike the inner half, what is closest to him. The reason why we do that is to prevent that casting. So there's no way he can hit the inside part of the baseball and unless he's doing this. If he is casting away, he's hitting the outer portion of the baseball. So it's a good way to say it, but it needs to be kind of explained deliberately so the kid knows what's going on. Okay? So in this particular drill, well, just so we know, we really emphasize that blue dot at an upward trajectory, so that's inside part of the baseball. Each time Sil jumps up for the tee, what he'll do is he will practice his point of contact. So if he's working middle, he's working just off his front foot. Back up the hair. Okay, and so that is where he's going to strike the baseball. It's real easy when you're working off the tee to get a bad rep because we're not positioned correctly on the tee. So we make sure that every time we take a tee swing, that we get to our point of contact and we're positioned correctly. Not only is it a bad rep, but this is when you can develop some bad habits if we're positioned incorrectly. So he has his point of contact. What I'm going to do as a coach is about when he's going to strike the baseball, I'm going to flash 1, 2, 3, or 4. And as he finishes his swing, he's going to tell me what number I flash. The reason why we do this is so that he is keeping his eyes at the point of contact throughout his swing. Okay, because it's real easy when you're swinging to kind of jump out here and kind of move through the end of your swing, and that will develop some leakage and your swing will start to break down. So we're practicing his eyes staying at the point of contact. So he'll take a swing, and I'll just flash it just after he strikes the baseball. 4. Okay, so that's generally how it works. Tee height. That's a good question. So when we're working just middle, we generally say that to work something just above knee level and probably between the midsection. Okay. Yeah. I mean that's a strike. We're looking. We have another drill that we vary the height, which we'll talk about in a second. But generally, if we're working off a tee, particularly in this instance, I just want like a middle, like a nice pitch to swing at. So that's just over his knee.
So I also noticed on that drill, he's looking straight ahead, and then when he loads, he's looking down.
Right.
Like he's not starting like this.
Yeah.
He starts like this and then looking, right?
I just do it to simulate basically.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, whenever we're doing a drill, we want to simulate as close as possible to
So
an
you don't want your kid looking down at the ball the whole time.
Correct. So you're looking at the pitcher, and then when you get into that stride load, which is the release point, that's when you shift your eyes to the baseball. And then that's why that blue dot actually comes into play, because from there you key right onto the blue dot. Good question. Okay. So the next drill we'll do. Quick. Call this high tee. Okay, we position the tee in terms of height just over what a strike would be to the top of the strike zone. So For Sil, that's going to be just under the letters, maybe a little bit lower. So we want to put it into a location where he needs to work to get that top hand through the baseball, but we also don't want to do it to an extreme where he has to jump up to get it. Okay, the only way that he's going to get a good rep and fire the baseball through the catch net is if not only his top hand's coming through, but he's working to get that downward trajectory. At the top of the strike zone, that can be a little bit harder, and you can see guys start to kind of come up a little bit. That's the big coaching point on high tee. Okay, so if the guy's kind of getting a little bit loopy, we say getting that top hand not on top of the baseball, this is a good idea for us to do. Let's jump on the high tee and spoon this up a little bit.
Probably for an older kid, you're not going to do this at 8 years of age. This is probably for 11 to 12 years of age.
I think so, but I also do think, and I haven't really coached younger kids, so I haven't had the trial and error of doing that. But I do think that with younger kids, that there's a lot of this, and this is the best way to clean that up. So maybe you adjust the height to just over his belly button. But I do believe that this is the best way to keep that top hand on top. Okay, so Sil will take a pack here. Again, he's positioned in the same way with just over his front foot, that point of contact's just out in front. Now, a quick point that I've neglected to say is that a good way to judge if a guy is swinging correctly is what the ball does when it hits the catch net, okay? When we're trying to swing, the reason why we're swinging on a downward trajectory is to create backspin, okay? Backspin creates more distance, and it's more hard on the line, preventing those big fly balls. So if a ball is struck with backspin, you're gonna see it kind of flare upwards towards the net. If you see a swing that he flares downward, it typically means that he's swinging at the top of the baseball or maybe even the outside part of the baseball, and he's not creating that downward trajectory. So that's another thing to kind of be out for when a guy's on a tee. So, you know, you can see with Sil in that swing, maybe he came up just a little bit. I would say next time just jump the tee down just a little bit more. The idea is not to get outside of, you know, the scope of a high swing. It can be even a high strike. The idea is just to keep the top hand on top of the baseball. And then this is my favorite drill for tees. Okay, you know, like I kind of referenced earlier, a big problem that we see with a lot of our guys is that we cast occasionally, and it comes from that temptation to go ahead and get that outside pitch. It's a little comfortable to get out there. The best way I know how to change that habit with the guy is to do this drill. I don't have a name for it, but what we do is we just adjust our point of contact for a middle pitch. So if we're stationed, you know, just in front with our front foot, with the middle pitch, we'll just move up just a hair so it's either even or maybe slightly behind. And we tell our kid to shoot opposite way gap with the pitch. So if we're a little bit deeper in middle pitch, the only way we can achieve that goal is to get to this position, ball, knob, body. And what we have to do is just allow the barrel to kind of glide through the contact zone and get here. It's kind of like the phenomenon if we're over here and we're trying to get here, let's go a little bit out here to meet in the middle. I do think that if we're doing this drill incorrectly, we can get into like a Derek Jeter kind of inside-out swing. I'm sure you guys know who he is, but the way he attacks the baseball, it's kind of like this, inside-out meaning this, as opposed to the power out here in front. So I think there is a danger of getting a little bit too excited with that, but I do think that if we treat this like a drill and you, I guess, express the drill nature of what's going on here, your kid's going to benefit in getting to this bat path point. So we'll have Sil jump up. Whenever we do something kind of opposite, I like to tilt the screen a little bit offset because it's never really opposite, it's always middle away, okay? So Sil's going to try to get that knob inside the baseball and his body. looking down through the baseball, is getting that downward trajectory on his bat path. Okay. Any questions on those T drills? Yes.
You have a kid that, he's not really using the best mechanics, but it's working for him. Do you get that much, or?
I mean, it's probably case by case. I think there is some black and white issues in the swing, and I also think that there's some gray areas. You have something in mind?
No, it seems like you were talking with Jeter. Not necessarily, what everybody else is doing, not necessarily the best mechanics, but it's working.
Yeah, I mean, something that I think Coach Luce loves to say is don't mess with success. And there's, definitely a kernel of truth to that. But I think with bat path is that this over a long period of time works. Anything else, there's no absolutes in baseball, but for the most part,